boys and girls. This is Granny. Today I'm going to read a nice, fun story, and it's about a young boy named David. It's David and Goliath, okay? And Mr. Bear is here. He's going to hold up the sign. How are you guys doing today? Hold up the sign. Hold it up. Okay, we'll just leave it like that. Okay. So it's about David and Goliath, okay? All right. The giant. The enemies of God's people came out to fight. They sent their best fighter out first. His name was Goliath. He was over 9 feet tall. He called to the army of Saul. He said, "Choose a man to come and fight me. And if he wins, we will be your servants. But if I win, you will be our servants." The men in Saul's army were afraid. They knew Goliath was stronger than they were. No one wanted to fight him. Goliath was a giant, and everybody was afraid of him. Nobody wanted to fight him. Now David's brothers were in Saul's army, but David was at home keeping the sheep. One day, David's father called him. "Take this bread to your brothers," he said. So David got to go to his brothers. He got to see the army. So David was just a teenager, and his dad told David to take some bread to his older brothers who were in the army, okay? He also got to see Goliath, and he saw how everyone was afraid of him. "I will fight Goliath," said David. He was just a little teenager. But Saul said, "You are only a boy. How can you fight Goliath?" "God will help me," said David. Even though David was a teenage boy, just a boy, he knew that God would help him and that he could win the Goliath, the giant, if he fought him, because he knew that God would help him. So Saul, the king, gave David his armor and helmet. He gave him a sword. David tried them on, but they were too heavy. David gave them back to Saul. "I am not used to these," he said. Instead, David chose 5 smooth stones from a stream. He took his sling in his hand. David called to Goliath, "You come with sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of God. The battle is the Lord's." So imagine a giant with a sword and a little boy who couldn't even fit into the helmet or the shield, or who could even carry the sword. So David said, "Oh, this is too big for me. I can't fit it." So he went down to the stream and got 5 smooth stones. What's he going to use the stones for? The giant came closer to David, but David put a stone in his sling and he threw the stone at Goliath. David had this sling right here. Let me show you. Right there. And he put a stone in it and he swung it around and around. And he threw it, and the stone hit the giant right in the forehead. The stone hit Goliath right into his forehead, and Goliath fell down. David trusted God. God helped David win. All the people were glad. Look what this little boy did. And he got the big giant. Imagine that. That's what God does. When you ask God for help, even though you're little, even though you're young, God will help you. David had a special job at Saul's house. When Saul felt bad, David played music for him. Then Saul would feel better. Saul is the king. And many times, kings have a lot of things to worry about because he has to take care of his people, right? And many times when Saul felt really bad, David played his harp and sang songs, and that would calm the king down. So Saul really liked David. Now Saul had a son. His name was Jonathan. Jonathan liked David very much. He gave David his robe, his tunic. He gave David his bow, his belt, and his sword. And they became best friends. So here's the king's son, Jonathan, and David. They were best friends. God blessed David. Whenever David went to fight, he won. The people began to like David better than Saul. This made Saul jealous and angry. See, the king, he was jealous of David because after David grew a little, he went to go fight wars, right? And all the battles, all the wars that he went out to, God helped David, so David won. And people started to love David more. And King Saul, he didn't like David. He got jealous of him. Saul got so angry at David. King Saul was jealous because people were liking David more than they were liking him. So jealousy is a very bad thing. Boys and girls, if you have friends and you think that your friend is better at you at something, don't get jealous because you'll become enemies, and that is not a good thing. So Saul got so angry at David, he threw his spear at him. He tried to kill David, but David ran from Saul. Imagine the king trying to kill you because he's jealous of you. That's not fair. Jonathan said, "You must leave." Imagine your dad trying to kill your best friend. Jonathan told David, "You must leave. You must leave the city. Get away from Saul." David was sad. He would miss Jonathan, but Jonathan said, "We will always be friends. We are best friends forever." Isn't that sad when your best friend's dad hates you so much that he wants to kill you? So now you have to run, and you have to run, and you're going to lose your best friend because you can't play with him anymore. That's really sad. That's really mean of Saul to do that, right? So I'm going to have to stop there today. But next time, we're going to read about King David. He's going to become king, okay? So until next time, boys and girls, be good. Be a good son or a daughter, okay? And listen to your parents and be good. And always ask God for help because he will make you strong if you ask for him to help you, okay? All right, Bear, let's say good night. Good night, boys and girls. Remember, Bear loves you. This Granny loves you. But most importantly, God loves you, okay? So, be strong and just cry to God. If you're having hard times, just pray to God and say, "God, I'm going through this hardship. I'm going through this bad thing. Please help me." And he will help you and make you feel better, okay?